What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another video, and thanks for watching. Today we're driving a 1993 Mazda RX7. So third generation RX7, it's the FD, and this is a car that I was pretty excited about reviewing because I have never driven one in all the years these things have been around, and so it's a really cool car to review. And so I have to say thanks to my friend Ed Brown for letting me review and drive this car. Thanks a lot to him, and he's the owner of the Fiero that was featured a couple months ago on the channel, and he's just an all-around big-time car guy. He's into a wide variety of cars, Italian cars, Ferraris. He's owned all sorts of really cool, interesting cars over the years, and so the third gen RX7 was made from 1992 until 2002, but in the US we only got it for 3 years, 93, 94, and 95. And this is a 93, so first year in the US. And they only sold around 14,000 of these in the US over its production run. And who knows how many of those are left, on the roads. That's another reason they're going up in value. A car like this is probably worth anywhere from $35,000 to $45,000. The best ones are going for over 50 now. They're going to continue to go up in value as well. They're not like the Acura NSX and the Toyota Supras that have I think they've topped out. They're the best examples of those cars are going. Some have gone for over 100 grand, and the RX7 still has room to go up in value. This is a really special car for a good number of reasons. It's a really good driver's car, and it's very unique. There's really nothing else like it on the road. The Rotary engine really sets it apart. It came out of an era of what I guess you could refer to as the second golden era of Japanese sports cars. The first one being the late 60s, early 70s, when you had cars like the Datsun 240Z, Datsun Roadsters, Mazda Cosmo, the Toyota 2000 GT. And then in the mid 70s, they stopped making cars like that. The Z cars got heavy and slower, and that was due to world economy was not doing well, the gas crisis and oil crisis and whatnot. But then in the late 80s and into the early 90s, the Japanese economy was doing really well. It was roaring away, and that was one of the reasons that the late 80s and the early 90s was such a great era for Japanese sports cars. You had cars like the twin-turbo 300ZX that came out at the time, the Acura NSX, which was basically a Ferrari competitor, Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4 in its variants, and the Toyota Supra, one of the most legendary cars from that era. And then you have this, the FD Generation RX7 that came out in the early 90s, and it has gone on to become a very iconic car. It's got a lot of hype around it, and for good reason. There's a lot to love about this car. So this is a low-mile, very original example. It has a couple of modifications that I'll go over, but it's got under 30,000 miles, and it's all very original and very nice. It's in extremely good condition. This car is very clean. Again, Ed, all of his cars that he owns are always like pristine examples, and this one's definitely no exception. I know that when Ed got it, it had coilovers, but he removed those and returned it to stock springs. But it does have two main modifications, and one of those is the exhaust system. So it has a Bones downpipe and a Bones catalytic converter. It's a high-flow cat. And then it has a racing beat, 3-inch diameter exhaust from the cat back. And then the other modification that it has are the wheels. It has this really iconic set of Enkei RFP1 wheels, which are the right wheel for the car, especially like a stock-bodied, largely unmodified FD-RX7. That's like definitely the best wheel, I think. It's a really light wheel and just looks right on the car. And so that's the only other modification. Other than that, it's stock. It's a 5-speed car. It was spec'd out with the touring package from new. So the touring package came with a few options. I'm not going to go over all of them, but a sunroof, the leather seating surfaces, rear wiper, cruise control, fog lights, I want to say. But it was not one of the R1 or R2 cars, which came later, and those cars had upgraded suspensions. So this car rides really nice. It's comfortable. You see these reviews on these RX-7s, and a lot of the times they complain about the ride being overly harsh and whatnot, but this car, it's got a very nice ride. It's got nice damping. It's firm, but it's not abusive at all. It feels really good. It's very comfortable on the road, smooth. It's considered one of the best looking Japanese sports cars, and I definitely would agree with that. It's got a low nose. You know, the rotary engine allowed the hood to be really low, so it's got a really low nose profile. It's got this really cool looking wraparound brake light setup. The door handles are integrated into the B-pillars up in the greenhouse, so it just has a really clean profile and really good looking. It's aged really well. It's a genuinely beautiful car. The interior in this car I really like. It's a really great place to spend time. It's very driver oriented, which adds to the whole feel of this being a driver's car. You sit low down. The dash design kind of curves from the back of the door panel all the way up and around over the gauges, down over to the center console, and then back, and it's a one continuous line. It really gives you the feeling of being in a cockpit. The tachometer is right in front of you, and the gauges are really clear. You know, this white on black background, really easy to read, really legible, but also kind of classic looking. And just overall, a really nice, simple design. The shifter is just right by the steering wheel, just a short drop away, and it's a little longer than a Miata, but it has that sort of Miata feel. It's a really great feeling transmission. So the shift action is very direct, very mechanical feeling, and you know, again, I know it's an overused word, but it's very analog feeling. And just, you know, again, the shifter adds to the general feel of this being a really well resolved driver's car. So the RX-7's main claim to fame is the engine under the hood, and it's a Wankel rotary engine. So all the FD RX-7s came with what's called the 13B rotary motor, and so it's basically a 1.3 liter rotary engine. It was designed by a German engineer named Felix Wankel, and Mazda bought the rights to it. And you know, it's just a very unique motor, and it gives the RX-7 a lot of its character as well. It's a really revvy engine. So this engine, when it came out, had about 255 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, and it had about 217 pound-feet of torque at 4,500 RPM, which is not a ton, but you know, that was enough in its day for this car to be 0 to 60 in around 4.9 seconds, just under 5 seconds, and that was an impressive number for 93. And one of the reasons that the car is that quick is because of the weight. Mazda really worked hard on making sure that the RX-7 was light, and so this thing came in at around 2,800 pounds when it was new, which was that's really light, and it just feels light. Like everything about it feels like the handling is nimble. It feels light. And so Ed thinks that with the modifications that this car has with the exhaust system, that it's putting out about 15 additional horsepower, so he's up to around 270, and I would say that that's probably about accurate. This car feels very lively, and it's got nice, strong acceleration. On the highway, this thing's very comfortable. It's really quiet. It doesn't, you know, it's just the exhaust on this one's a little bit louder, but it's not drony at all, and it just kind of has this nice little burbly sound to it. Just sounds good, and this is a car that you could drive across the country in comfort, no problem. It's very comfortable to drive. There's a good amount of headroom. I'm not that tall. I'm about the right size for this car, just under 6 feet. But I think anybody, you know, even somebody who's taller than me would not have a problem fitting in here. It is an absolute blast to drive. It's really fun. Like I said, it feels light and very nimble. The steering is light, but it's very direct, and you can feel everything that's going on with the road, all the little imperfections and bumps and ruts and whatnot. It just it gives a lot of feedback about the road surface and what's going on, but it also is it's comfortable and stable. Like it's got these nice, relatively fat tires. I know in period these would have been considered low profile, but the larger sidewall makes the car comfortable over bumps and makes it grip better, especially on bumpy surfaces. The engine is interesting, and definitely with this one with the opened up exhaust, it's louder than a stock one would have been, and it sounds good. It's laggy feeling a little bit, doesn't have a lot of torque below 4,000 RPM when there's just the single turbo that's spooling up, but when the second turbo spools up around 4 to 4,500, woo, this thing just takes off. I mean, it's a quick car. You can really feel everything that's going on with the chassis. And it makes good power from like 4 to like 6,500, which is where peak horsepower is made, you can just, you can kind of play with it in between 4,000 and 6,500 RPM to make good progress, and it's got plenty of power. It revs really effortlessly. This is a total driver's car. It's got good acceleration. It's not a rocket, but it's definitely really well balanced. The amount of power with the handling, the braking, and everything. If you go into a corner really quickly, it'll understeer, but then you get on the throttle, and you can really balance it out. Yeah, this thing is really fun to drive. So the brakes are good. Again, with the relative lack of weight, 2,800 pounds, it's got good, strong braking for for these being a stock setup. Easy to modulate. Yep, definitely. I can see why this is such a popular car. It's really fun to drive. It's cool looking, and it just feels really pure and really well engineered. You can tell they put a lot of effort into making it feel like light and responsive. Puts the power down really well. It rolls, definitely it rolls a bit, which is to be expected from a car from this era, but once you get used to it, it's, it actually adds to I feel like it adds to the flickability of the car. It tilts a little bit into a corner and then takes a set, moves around. It's got a little bit of squat, a little bit of dive. All right, you guys, well, there you have it. 3rd generation FD RX7. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next video.